Warm greetings from the high 10. It's Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you all for joining me. Hope you all have had a prosperous week. Please be safe this weekend, venturing out on your errands and leisure activities, football games. Mind the children. Be aware of your surroundings. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you all tuned into my earlier live. It was a bit winded. Mr. AB joined me for a 3-part live pertaining to Eliza Fletcher, the Merced quadruple murders in California, and Debbie Collier. This live is a bit late. Excuse my manners, but I was on this story pertaining to Debbie Collier, and I didn't even get any notifications pertaining to Kamille Mckinney. Usually I stay up on my storylines, but nonetheless, I'm going to recap everything that's transpired this week to the best of my ability. Feel free to hit the link once it's dropped to give your commentary on this case, what you think about what was said during testimony, what was said pertaining to the guilt or innocence of Patrick Stallworth. Do you believe he's innocent? Do you believe this is all Derica Brown? Do you believe he played a role? Do you believe he sexually assaulted the child? He is claiming that he did not rape the child. I'm going to bring you commentary from people who testified to say they heard him say it. One said they heard he did rape the child. The one nurse said he didn't. What's the truth? 2 people in a room can't get the story right. Already got people in court doing what was done in the beginning of the story. Everybody had a version. We're even going to hear about Miss Long, the cousin. And I think what she has to say is interesting. I hope that what I'm repeating is accurate, because I don't know what to believe quite to tell you the truth, because it's all bullshit to me. And see, this is what happens. I'm going to go ahead and say this because you all know how I rock. Whenever you're dealing with street people, you're always going to get a version. So now we have a different version of the child got in the car to go get candy. See, that doesn't even make any sense. And I'm going to tie up all that once I'm done playing my commentary, because I'm about to get crunk already, because this the story is already goofy and full of lies already. We know what those 2 did were heinous and wrong, but I still feel some type of way about the child being out unattended in the dark playing. Other children were around. The other children were not assaulted, kidnapped, just this one child taken. There's something strange about that to me. Very strange to me. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, Everyday Shenanigans, $sign DeGanji, 129 Cash App. All super chats, stickers are welcome during this live. It will probably get a bit windy because I've got to recap 4 days of testimony pertaining to this story, because I'm late to bring you the information, but nonetheless, I'm back on it. Thank you so much for joining me. Here we go. It's wicked, wicked, wicked. WVTM 13 News is the source. This is pertaining to 2 days ago. FBI agents testify about security videos in Cupcake kidnapping trial. Thank you.
One of the most emotional moments, Guy, I would have to say, was when FBI agents pulled out a blood-stained plastic mattress cover, a cover that prosecutors say contains the DNA of Patrick Stallworth, who's on trial, Derek Brown is co-defendant, and 3-year-old Cupcake Mckinney. Now, most of the testimony today did focus on a variety of videos, police body cameras, a number of business security footages, and this black and white clip taken from the Tom Brown Village around the time Mckinney was taken there back in 2019. It shows an adult male walking to the left with 2 small children following him into the darkness. FBI agent Jonathan Spade, who interviewed Stallworth 4 days after McKinney's disappearance, was one of the day's main witnesses. He told the jury that Stallworth admitted he was at the Tom Brown Village complex that night in 2019. He even recalled speaking to 2 small children there. Agent Spade was asked if that adult in the video was Patrick Stallworth. He replied, "I think it's consistent with the way he walks and the clothes he was wearing that day." But when asked about the kids, added, "I cannot say that it is Cupcake." Now, another moment to note today, there was a teenager.
Let me go back and repeat. Let's go back and hear that again. Hold on 1 second.
McKinney's disappearance was one of the day's main witnesses. He told the jury that Stallworth admitted he was at the Tom Brown Village complex that night in 2019. He even recalled speaking to 2 small children there. Agent Spade was asked if that adult in the video was Patrick Stallworth. He replied, "I think it's consistent with the way he walks and the clothes he was wearing that day." But when asked about the kids, added, "I cannot say that it is Cupcake. Another moment to note today, there was a teenager called to the stand. She testified about how when she was leaving cheer practice the day of the kidnapping, there was an SUV that pulled up. A man asked her if she wanted candy. Today, she was asked if she could identify that person in the courtroom.
Initially, let me go back.
No,
I'm starting.
He was at the Tom Brown Village Complex.
I'm getting irritated.
2019. He even recalled speaking to two small children there. Agent Spaeth was asked if that adult in the video was Patrick Stallworth. He replied, "I think it's consistent with the way he walks and the clothes he was wearing that day." But when asked about the kids, added, "I cannot say that it is Cupcake." Another moment to note today, there was a teenager called to the stand. She testified about how when she was leaving cheer practice the day of the kidnapping, there was an SUV that pulled up. A man asked her if she wanted candy. Today, she was asked if she could identify that person in the courtroom. Initially, she said no twice before nodding affirmation. Coming up at 6, we'll have more details on today's testimony. Live in Birmingham, John Packey, WVTN 13.
Let's go back to that. See, that's something that's crazy. We had already heard the information about he and Derica early in the day around noon or afternoon, 12 o'clock, that they approached two girls near a school asking about candy. Now we get testimony that the girl acted like she didn't want to say anything. Why? Has somebody threatened her? Who's threatened her? Prosecution, what? Defense, what? Somebody in his family, what? This is very strange to me. I want to replay this because I want to make sure I repeat everything correctly before I give my commentary pertaining to this story. How's there no evidence? The girl's DNA is on a mattress in their apartment. That's evidence. How's it not evidence? She's dumped in a dumpster in an apartment adjacent to their apartment. Come on now. Don't start that. They were there. Truck there. And you know somebody saw them over there. Because there's always somebody that's looking and lurking. Hanging around, looking out windows, doorways. Somebody's watching. I want to go back and recap this information pertaining to this video surveillance and this. Something's off here.
He was wearing that day, but when asked about the kids, added, "I cannot say that it is Cupcake." Another moment to note today, there was a teenager called to the stand. She testified about how when she was leaving cheer practice the day of the kidnapping, there was an SUV that pulled up. A man asked her if she wanted candy. Today, she was asked if she could identify that person in the courtroom. Initially, she said no twice before nodding affirmation. Coming up at 6, we'll have more details on today's testimony. Live in Birmingham, John Packey, WVTN 13.
Yeah. All right, everybody, that's WVTM. Why did the girl say no at first 2 times and then nodded her head yes? This is strange to me. How would you not remember the person that approached you in a truck asking you for candy? Because by the time they arrested him, you would have known that that was the guy that approached you at that time. Oh, yeah, that's the guy. That's the same guy. So what did she tell authorities in the beginning? Did she say in the beginning that, yes, that's Patrick Stallworth? That guy approached me. And how did this information get out? About she and that girl being approached, if this is indeed the same story. I don't know if this is the same story or not. The same girls. I don't know. Because my understanding was 2 girls. Maybe this is another girl. Maybe that's what they were doing all damn day, trying to find somebody to get in that damn truck. This is crazy to me. So is it that she can't remember the guy? What are we saying here? Oh, Lord of mercy. Scared. Scared of what? He's in jail. He's not getting out. And let his family tell it. They testified in court. A preacher and his stepfather. He's a nice guy. Not that kind of guy, remember? Yeah, okay. Taking you back a couple of days. Get this information out, everybody. Today, they rested. I'll bring you that one last. Trying to bring you everything up to date pertaining to the story. ABC 3340 is my second source. Agent testifies, I thought it was a doll. Emotional trial continues as agent talks about finding the body. Lord have mercy. God help us. 1 second, everybody.
Jurors were shown images today that were really difficult to see.
Brenda, the courtroom filled with tears when images of Kamille Cupcake Mckinney's body were shown to the jury. Now, we were not allowed to see those photos, but they were shown during a testimony from an FBI agent about when her body was found at a landfill. Now, Stanley Ruffin was a special agent at the time who worked on this case. He said, I didn't know it was a body right away. I thought it was a doll lying there. He went on to say he was involved in 9/11 and thought that was the worst thing he dealt with until this. The defense did not cross-examine this witness. Among other testimonies was one Birmingham homicide detective, Jonathan Ross, which lasted about 2 hours. He conducted 4 interviews with Stallworth. He stated the only time Stallworth made any admissions was after Cupcake's body was recovered. When the defense cross-examined, Ross was specifically asked about Stallworth's emotion during the final interview, where Stallworth appeared to be crying. Now, we also heard from another detective on the case at the time who answered questions regarding interviews with Stallworth's girlfriend, Derek Brown, and what she said that led up to Cupcake's body being found. Additionally, forensic pathologist Dr. Daniel Dye spoke on Cupcake's autopsy report. Dye says there were signs of injuries sustained while she was alive, and the toxicology report revealed methamphetamine and trazodone in her system, which he said is part of the reason for her death. Now, the defense attorney stresses that at no point did experts present any evidence showing that Mckinney had any signs of sexual abuse. The trial continues tomorrow. We're told defense will give their side of the case then. For now, we're live in Birmingham. Valerie Bell, ABC 3340.
All right. Content uploaded 1 day ago. So he's crying. Testimony from the agent. Why would you be crying if you didn't have anything to do with this case? Period. Saw the girl, touched the girl, raped the girl, gave her drugs. What? You kidnapped the girl. You all can't sit here and try to act like this man didn't have something to do with this child. Come on now. The drugs in her system belong to him. He's the one with the problems. Some type of sleep problem, some mess. 3-year-old would not be just taking drugs that belong to you. Then how does she get to your house? She doesn't know you, allegedly. No sexual assault. But let's also remember 10 days in a dumpster. Would you be able to come to that conclusion? No, of course you couldn't. She's in the dumpster too long, almost 2 weeks. Almost 2 weeks. This is a state trial. There's no federal death penalty on the table for the two, but the state is seeking the death penalty. Let me make that clear in this commentary. Federally, they're facing life without parole. But the state is seeking the death penalty. From my understanding, the last reading from March or May of this year. Crying. Why would a man be crying once the body's been found? Just asking. You didn't do anything. Because you got to remember, he adamantly said he didn't know the little girl. So he's crying. Also, I'm going to bring you commentary that he texted on a tablet in jail to his aunt that he was sorry for the death of her. And he said, poor family. So why say any of that? You haven't done anything. ABC 3340 is the source of this information. Thank you for joining me. Let's see what else we can come up with. Oh, Lord, this is bad. He thought it was a doll, said that agent. Second day of Stallworth trial includes multiple witnesses. This should be very interesting. 3340 is the source. ABC. We're going to chop it up because you know the Queen's going to go there because I'm finding a lot of BS in this story about this child getting in the car with this man and going to get candy. Somebody's not going to like what I have to say, but I don't care about that. Because this case is ratchet to me, and it's ratchet because of the people who had the child, the custody of the people she was in. Then she's left behind with some more ratchet-ass people. And then some more ratchet people come along and kidnap her and assault her and throw her in a dumpster. This is what I talk about on my channel. It's responsibility. That one person can bring down a house of cards. One person. And it starts with the one. Yeah, I'm talking about that mama. Because had you been watching your child and spending time with your child, we wouldn't be talking about this story. And the fact that I didn't get any mention of you in this testimony or conversation, that's odd to me. Because indeed, this is your child. You left her over here at the cousin's house. But you're nowhere to be found. We're going to chop all that up. Oh, yeah, you can believe that. This is bad. This is the second day trial this week.
Kidnapping case of Patrick Stallworth. You might recall he's charged in connection with the deadly 2019 kidnapping of 3-year-old Kamille Cupcake McKinney.
ABC 3340's
okay, this is federal. Sorry.
Federal courthouse in Birmingham this
Getting mixed
afternoon
up.
with what we learned during today's testimony. Valerie?
Pam, trial is still underway in Judge Scott Kugler's courtroom. Prosecutors called a number of witnesses. Now, this morning, Shanita Long, a cousin of Kamille McKinney's mother, took the stand. Long testified that one of her children, who was also 3 at the time of the kidnapping, was playing with Cupcake outside the Tom Brown Village housing community in Birmingham. She testified her daughter said Cupcake got into a man's car and was going with him to the store to get candy. Later, we heard testimony from a former Birmingham police officer and 3 special agents who painted a timeline on defendant Patrick Stallworth's whereabouts that day based on numerous surveillance videos. One video showed Stallworth buying candy at a nearby gas station earlier that day. The defense told jurors Stallworth was eating a lot of candy in an effort to quit smoking. Additionally, an agent testified he found a mattress cover with a red stain on it inside Stallworth's apartment. Now, day 3 of testimony is set for Wednesday. Live in Birmingham, Valerie Bell, ABC 3340 News.
Let's go back.
A cousin of Kamille McKinney's mother took the stand. Long testified that one of her children, who was also 3 at the time of the kidnapping, was playing with Cupcake outside the Tom Brown Village housing community in Birmingham. She testified her daughter said Cupcake got into a man's car and was going with him to the store to get candy. Later, we heard testimony from a former Birmingham police officer and 3 special agents who painted a timeline on defendant Patrick Stallworth's whereabouts that day based on numerous surveillance videos. One video showed Stallworth buying candy at a nearby gas station early.
What the hell did I just hear? Shanita Long. Now, I don't hear any mention of a bouncy house because you all wrote that story out. And I think you knew that the day it was time to go to trial, you were going to have to banish that. Come on with it, Queen. I told you all this is how it was going to go. That whatever was said in the beginning about Tom Brown and that little girl and running in and out, peeing and all that, was not going to be what you heard when it was time for trial. So how did it go? When are any of you going to tell the truth about what happened to Kamille McKinney? That's what I'd like to know. From start to finish. Mother, father, cousin, neighbors, eyewitnesses, Derica, Patrick. Just tell me, when is somebody going to say what really happened? October 12th, 2019. Because it says right here, Shanita Long testified the children got in the car. Her child was one of the children. Well, let's go there. You never told anybody that was your child because everybody kept asking that a few years back. Whose child was that? Whose child was that? That's on the video playing with Cupcake. If we would have believed that was Cupcake out there playing in the dark, because naturally that camera was quite a ways away from where the children were playing in that, what I call a parking lot. not a courtyard, but you all are entitled to call it whatever you like. So let's go there. Why were these children out alone in the dark, unattended? Why was this child out allegedly using the restroom on herself? Nobody came to the door. Yeah, we're going to bring all it up because that's what was told. And I don't think that young lady lied who was having that birthday party. But as you see, you don't hear anything about a birthday party in any of the videos that I just played. And I've only played, what, 2? No mention of a party. No mention of a bouncy house. Just, yeah, she got in the car with a stranger. Well, she got in the car with a stranger. Or is Patrick a stranger to you all? I'm confused. Because 1 minute, he doesn't know the child. That's his first claim. Then you all don't know Patrick. April doesn't know Patrick. But yet you're testifying that the children, got in the car with a stranger, or let's just say Patrick. So I'm going to ask you directly, Miss Long, do you know Patrick Stallworth? Do you know Derica Brown? Does April know Patrick Stallworth and Derica Brown? Because you're making it sound like you knew that the children got in the car and got candy and you all are waiting for the children to return. And that makes no sense because allegedly you all weren't even outside to know who the hell got the children. Now, that's the assertion you gave us in the beginning. Am I mistaken? So how can you get on a witness stand and testify that the children got into anybody's car if you weren't even around when the children were playing? My understanding, that courtyard is around the corner from your apartment, so you don't have a view from my understanding of the courtyard. So I'm going to say it again. How do you know what the children were doing? How do you know anything? This is just BS. Right. The little boy said something about it. So that's my point. So what? You're lying for April? You're lying for the fact that she caught hell as being a neglectful mother. So you're trying to save face now in court and act like what? You witnessed seeing the child get in the car. But think about what you're doing if indeed that's what you did in court. Because I wasn't there, so I don't really know what the hell y'all said in court. That makes no sense, and it's ignorant. Because if you knew and saw a child get in the car, you should have no problem with giving a description of the car to authorities. It wouldn't have made any sense for you all to go live when you all were looking at that in them dumpsters in Center Point. Did you remember that? Because I remember it well. Remember when you all were looking around, going live in that apartment complex that, looking in dumpsters and looking around? Why would you be looking for somebody if you knew that they got in a car with a stranger? You would be able to identify the damn car and say, oh, yeah, the guy looks like this. The car has 4 doors. It's this color. I'll wait. No, you're doing this shit because you knew that bouncy house theory was null and void. Everybody debunked it because the person who threw the party knew better. That's how all this came about. The young lady let it be known she didn't invite nobody to no damn party. She didn't invite those kids. She didn't know you. She didn't know April, so she didn't invite your damn kids. And now you in court lying once again. Because I always said, I can't wait till they go to court, and I can't wait to see what version they were going to give in court. So let me guess, you didn't mention the bouncy house. You didn't mention the child coming to the door numerous times trying to use the restroom. You didn't mention that somebody came with the child knocking on the door to take the child back to your house. So I'm going to ask you now, what were you doing, Miss Long and Miss Thomas, for the child not to even be able to get in the house? Bet that wasn't mentioned in court, was it? And I'd like to know why April didn't testify. Did she not testify? Because I find that strange. Why would you not testify? Or maybe I'm wrong. Because wouldn't court want to know where the mother was? So it's almost like you're playing the role of the mother of October 12th. I'm just curious. You people are just vile to me. Damn vile. Trifling as hell. I'd like to know why you're testifying to this. Because you are not a witness to the children getting in the car, because as I said, that defeats the purpose of looking around for the child in the Tom Brown housing developed, going around on live streams looking for the child a day later, 2 days later. And once again, did April Thomas testify in this trial pertaining to her whereabouts on October 12th? I'd like to know that. Was she there or was she not there? Where was Miss Long? Were you in the apartment complex as well, or were you all in somebody else's apartment or off the property altogether? Once again, no mention of a bouncy house. And why didn't they take your child? Find that interesting. Children out playing, they chose Kamille. Why? Strange. In the dark, they could say, hey, I want that kid right there. So were they out looking for children all day long, trying to find a victim? Didn't matter about the age. They just wanted a kid, a girl child, black child. My belief is that in the beginning, you should have been able to ID the suspect if you're going to testify that you saw the child get in the car. And like I said, I believe you're covering for April Thomas because she wasn't there and you possibly weren't there either, or you were goofing off or geeking or getting high your damn self. And this is the roost y'all coming up with because you knew how badly people talked about the bouncy house theory and the fact that that was the start of this story in every news broadcast about the bouncy house, that you knew that wasn't going to stick, because then that means they would have to call in the court the girl who threw the party, and then she would get up there and tell the whole story that she didn't know any of you and she ain't invited you or your kids. So then people would start to question the bouncy house and who was actually watching the children. And the fact that nobody was watching the children. The fact that why are these people taking a child to a door to use the restroom? Did any of that come out in this week's testimony? I'd like to know, because I haven't heard one mention of it thus far. You're covering for her. Why? You're covering for her because you know she didn't watch her child. And that's how her child got gone. We get information that there was no sexual deviances with a child. But remember, the child was in the dumpster for 10 days. Is it possible that they can't render that decision because of decomposition? They can't render an adequate decision on that. Interesting. Very interesting. Let's go to our next commentary. Gets a little bit juicier, everybody. Okay. Trying to make sure I play all of the videos. There's so much. WVTM 13, Stallworth told police Cupcake Mckinney was choked to death. Wow, this was 1 day ago. Commentary. Thank you for joining me. Sorry about that. Can't talk while that thing pings. It cuts itself off after so long. Thank you all so much. Well, they're lying about all that.
From crime. Well, the police investigator, Jonathan Ross, was the top witness of today's trial. He is actually the lead police investigator on the fatal kidnapping of Cupcake Mckinney. But for most of the morning, he testified about Patrick Stallworth's October 22nd, 2019 police interview. The prosecution played clips of it for the jury. At one point during the recording, Stallworth told police how co-defendant Derek Brown wanted him to touch Mckinney inappropriately, but he refused. And at some point, Stallworth claimed Brown tried to put the baby to sleep, but he said the 3-year-old would not stop crying. And the detective asked, what did Derek do? In tears, Stallworth mumbled, I think she, and then stopped. The detective followed, I can't hear you. Stallworth replied, I think she choked her. She might have choked her. Well, that was just the beginning of today's emotional testimony. Coming up at 5, we'll highlight what the coroner's office had to say about Mckinney's death. Live in Birmingham, John Packard, WVTM 13.
She choked her. I think she choked her. But then you get more testimony. We're going to have nurses say You might have raped her, you might not. So what really happened to the baby? I'm curious. This is bullshit. All of this is just absolutely ridiculous to me. Oh my God. They rested today. Let me see if I've played that information to you. We'll go back. This is all just jacked up. Oh man.
This afternoon, they all basically said that they remembered Patrick Stallworth as a peaceful person, but the bigger moment during the defense's part of the case was when they called a rebuttal witness. Well, earlier today, the prosecution called Phyllis Cox to the stand. She used to work as a nurse at the Pickens County Jail where Patrick Stallworth was being held. She told the jury this morning how Stallworth admitted to raping the baby but not killing her. Well, Tony Crowell was the other nurse in the room at the time of the alleged confession. So this afternoon, the defense called her as their first witness. She said she remembered seeing Stallworth in the nurse's station, but when Stallworth's lawyer asked about the rape confession, Crowell responded, "I didn't hear it." Well, the prosecution then tried to discredit Crowell by playing jail call recordings between her and Stallworth. During one, Stallworth told the nurse, "I dream about you," and later added, "I need some of that honey," obviously trying to establish some sort of relationship between the two. Well, both sides rested their cases before 3 o'clock this afternoon. The closing arguments are now set to begin at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, with deliberations likely to begin tomorrow afternoon. Live in Birmingham, John Pappy, WBTN 13.
I'm Dr. Carter.
How crazy is that? One's assistant nurse, one's head nurse, registered nurse, I guess. I don't know. One's Caucasian, the one that says she heard him say, let me make sure I get this right. The rebuttal witness, which is the female white nurse, Phyllis Cox, said she heard him saying he raped the child. So is this the truth or not? Did he rape the child? Did he sexually assault the child? But then we go down to the assistant nurse who's black, who was obviously in the room at the same time, said she didn't hear him confess to raping the child. And they've also had phone conversations, and they have been recorded in the jail by officials, where Patrick has professed feelings for her. Why does Patrick Stallworth have your telephone number, ma'am? Please explain that to me. Why would you give a man accused of raping a child, kidnapping and raping a child, and dumping her in a dumpster? Why in the hell would you, in a professional capacity working in a jail, give this man your number? I'll wait. Because he couldn't have just called you out of the blue. You either gave him your government name, your phone number, and or a way to contact you on Messenger. And we know he had a tablet, so he possibly contacted you on Messenger. That means you gave him information. Why would you be giving him information? Were you using him to try to get information to see if he confessed to anything? Because there's some hanky-panky going on with you two. You're talking to him privately. He's getting feelings for you and making comments, flirting with you. It's all taped. Did you two not know that they were going to tape your conversations? What the hell is going on here? And then the Caucasian nurse said she heard him say he raped the baby. So which one of you is telling the truth? And I'd like to know why the hell is he even talking about doing anything to the child? Man, you people are ratchet. This is what I'm saying. You go all the way oh my God, 3 years we wait to get these people into court. And they got more ratchetness going on in the courtroom, behind, in the jail, folks flirting with each other, and you're supposed to be administering whatever type of healthcare, and you flirting and giving your number out, Messenger, I guess. I don't know. Oh my God, I can scream. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Ratchetness begets ratchetness. Ratchet mom and daddy, ratchet environment. ratchet people come and kill the kid, assault the kid, dump the kid in a damn dumpster. Now you fast forward 3 years, you got ratchet people working with this motherfucker in the damn jail, flirting and shit. He shouldn't even have access to your government name to talk to you on Messenger and or your phone number. And I find it funny that neither one of you still work for the jail. Why is that? Enlighten me. Because the commentary says former assistant nurse, nursing assistant, former nurse. Why is that? Why are you two not working for the jail any longer? Yeah, I'll wait. Why would you want to have access to a child killer? It's bad enough you in there working with him. You want to talk to him on the phone. What did you all talk about? That's what I like to know. Did you do this to try to get information so you could later testify in court? Just curious. Saw you standing out there on the courthouse steps, the black lady, the nurse's assistant. Looked like you were talking to yourself, or did you have a Bluetooth in your ear? Oh, I'm just curious. When you saw that agent coming out the door with that lady, you were mumbling something. What were you mumbling? Very interesting. Two character witnesses say that Mr. Stallworth is a peaceful person. Well, he's not now. He's on trial for kidnapping and killing a kid. They're in federal court. Sorry, I think I said state. Federal trial. But the federal court is not seeking, federal prosecutors aren't seeking the death penalty. That's what I'm trying to say. Texting to his aunt off a tablet. I got information about that. He's sorry, poor family. Sorry about what? Agent says you were crying, but yet when they were first interrogating you, when you got your ass bonded out of there, you didn't know the child, never seen her, never did nothing to her. Wasn't me, I ain't do nothing, I ain't touch her. How am I going to be arrested? How am I going to be arrested for doing something to a child? I don't know her, I didn't see her. Okay. We get your crying later. And why are they giving you all access to a tablet? What is this, a resort? I hear people in prisons with cell phones. Yes, I have. That means the guards are bringing them in for a nice fee. So see, y'all have to ask yourself about these guards. How far would they go to aid these damn prisoners? Because that stuff that gets into prison, it didn't walk itself in there by itself. Somebody's bringing that stuff in there. So you're sitting here with a damn tablet like you're in, a boarding school or something. And got this black woman talking to you. I'm wondering if she's flirting back. What all was said in those phone conversations, I'm wondering. Or was it just mild conversation? How long were you all talking? And at what point did you give him your personal information for him to contact you? This is bad. Both former nurses. One says he admitted to rape the white nurse, and then the assistant nurse, the black lady, she says, I don't remember hearing it. But yet they both were allegedly in the same room with the suspect. Strange. Two different versions. Kind of like the start of this story. Different versions of what the hell happened to Kamille. Don't nobody know nothing. A child sees something, repeats it on a live, but you never hear the mama, the sister, the cousin, nobody else telling no version. Now this half for the cousin, Miss Long goes in the court and says she saw the child get in the car. But then what was the purpose of the search of the child? Because you should have been able to make out who he was then. And if you saw it, why the fuck you didn't go say something to him and run up to the truck and say, hey, that's my kid. What? Hey, my kids ain't got no business getting in the car with you. Do you know how ridiculous this sounds? But I blame Birmingham Police Department because you all allowed this farce to go on with the start of them spinning a lie about a fucking bouncy house. You knew there was no bouncy house. If it was, they were not invited to the party. They used it as an excuse because they knew they were not watching those children. So both of them are foul. And now you're going into court acting like you saw what happened, which we know you couldn't have seen what happened. They wouldn't have been looking for them. You would have ran up to the car and told them, hey, give me my kids. Hey, what y'all doing in there? Y'all don't know them. Or hell, did you know them? I don't know. Because I tried to give you Allie Batts the benefit of the doubt as far as knowing Patrick and Derica. I knew you all were trifling. That I already knew. I knew you weren't watching those children. But I never had proof that you knew Derica and Patrick Stallworth. And I know that the world is small. People talk. People know of people. They may not be best friends with them, but they know of them. They know their name. So I'd like to know why the fuck you're in that courtroom lying like you saw something when you know you didn't. So even in the end, you're still trying to go all the way out for April Thomas. Ooh, you are something else. Wow. This conversation between Patrick and this assistant nurse, is this just an issue of him being in there, bored? No, he's not coming out of there. He sees her all the time. So, you know, you covet what you see every day. And it's a matter of transference for him. She was around him quite often, so he started falling for her. Did she fall for him too? Because that commentary of him saying, I dream about you and I want some of that honey. Wow, that's interesting. I want some of that honey. Okay. Well, now. Can't make that up. As I said, both had to have known that his conversations would be recorded due to the crime he was accused of. So why are you all talking to each other? He probably don't care because he knew he's not coming out of there. He knows his part he played in kidnapping and assaulting his child and the murder of his child. He just went with the flow, I guess. What I find sickening is the fact the two different versions from the nurses. That's bothersome to me because this story started off with lies pertaining to who was watching Kamille Mckinney. Nobody was watching her and her brother and whomever and the other little child, assuming it's a girl. So you had two trifling mamas not watching their children and the children off behind a building playing, and anything could have happened to the children. Could have got bitten by a dog, could have ran out in the street, could have got hit by a car, somebody could have ran them over, could have went a multitude of ways. And the only thing she could think of doing is talking on Facebook and telling people about what other people were doing with their children. And, oh, well, they letting their kids walk to school alone. So what? That's their dumb ass. What does that have to do with your decision making? Nothing. And, of course, there were a lot of innuendos, versions of who was involved, a lot of bullshit with the baby daddy and going live and people chasing cars in the dark and seeing a baby wrapped in a sheet, all type of shenanigans. But, see, this is why I keep trying to tell you all, is that you couldn't believe all that bullshit that was on Facebook because these people are all just as ratchet as the parents. Just as ratchet. That's the whole reason why Kamille is no longer here. It's because of where she was residing. The people that were supposed to be responsible for her didn't give a damn. And when you went to Facebook and looked up all the crazy shit the mother was saying on Facebook, you could see this heifer didn't give a damn about herself and she didn't give a damn about that boy child. Talking crazy about him. He's too clingy and this and that. Well, damn, excuse me. He just lost his sister. Why can't he be clingy? But see, this goes to show you, you don't know people. And the only thing she can think of doing is still blame other people like, oh, well, they took my child. They did this to my child. Well, where's the responsibility for you? You let them have access to your kid. That's how I look at it. You know? You're going to wait till dark 30 to go look for your kid outside and your child's been outside all day, peeing on herself, going inside of an apartment, changing her clothes, coming back out. So we have to ask all those questions still. Who changed her? She changed her own clothes? She changed her own clothes in a place that she don't live allegedly. But you don't hear none of that because that's not important now, 3 years later. And I'm not making excuses for Patrick and Derica. What they did was heinous. But you helped them. Because you weren't watching your damn child. Children. Let me make that clear. Children. A 3-year-old don't have any business outside at dark. I don't care if it was 7 o'clock, 7:20, 7:30. She should have been inside. She should have been had dinner. See, that's what nobody's paying attention to. Those kids hadn't even had no fucking dinner because they've been out all damn day running around like a bunch of damn grown-ups while you all are doing what the hell you want to do and then cry later like, oh, they're judging me. They're talking about me. Oh, nobody should be saying these things about me except what the hell I want to say. You don't care about your kids because you don't care about yourself. And when you went to Facebook going on and on, that showed me you never cared about yourself because no decent human would get on Facebook ranting and raving and cussing people out. What type of mother does that? You just lost your kid. You're all up on Facebook talking crazy, arguing with strangers in your messenger. Which the hell I would sit up here and argue with a fool on Facebook about my kid. But you like that drama because that's why your child got gone, see? Because that's the kind of life you led. You showed that. You live for drama. You like drama. Then the following spring, you're up in a trap house with an Alabama rapper and his friend that allegedly you were messing around with at some point. See, you like that type of life. Trap queen. You're fascinated with gang life and all that shit. That's why your baby not here. Because you never cared. Now you got your stupid ass cousin sitting up in court lying for you. And she's stupid as hell too. Because they could have taken her child. Miss Long, you must have forgot about that. They could have taken your child. But hell, you don't care either. Two bobbleheads together. Let's chop up what happened in court. Thank you for joining me. You want to donate to this channel? $sign Beganji, 129 Cash App, all super chat stickers. Welcome during this live. Donations to the channel, $sign Beganji, 129. Like, share, subscribe. Drop your comments below. Oh, man, this is bad. Just ignorant to me. I think there's some information I didn't play. Hold on 1 second, you guys. I'm going to see if I played this video or not. That's what happens when I play so much, I start to forget what I've played.
Bluetooth connected.
Federal kidnapping trial of Patrick Stallworth.
Stallworth is charged in the 2019 deadly kidnapping of 3-year-old Kamille Cupcake Mckinney. ABC 3340's Valerie Bell is covering the trial for us. Valerie, what's the latest?
Brenda and Stephen, court ended early today. Now jurors have a night to reflect on what was said before coming together to deliberate on evidence before them. Dr. Constance Fisher, an FBI forensic examiner, first on the stand today. Her testimony spoke to stains found on the mattress cover. She determined in her report that DNA shows Cupcake, Stallworth, and Brown were all likely contributors to the stains. In response to a question from the defense, Fisher said she couldn't specify when or how the DNA got there. We also heard from Detective Jeannie Miller with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. She testified to text messages sent from a tablet on Stallworth's account while he was jailed and in protective custody. We saw 2 messages sent to Stallworth's aunt. The one said, quote, "I'm sorry I did this. It was an accident. That poor baby's family," end quote. The defense asked about the possibility of other inmates using the tablet. Miller responded saying that can happen, but they likely use it to send texts to their own families. We also heard testimony from a former nurse at the Pickens County Jail. She spoke to a comment she said she overheard from Stallworth admitting to raping the child, but saying he didn't kill her. The defense pointed out to her in cross there had been no evidence of rape in this trial. The government's final witness was Special Agent Cynthia Bobie. She recounted the facts of the investigation and painted a picture of what happened from the time Cupcake was reported missing till the time her body was found. The defense called 3 of their own witnesses. Toni Crowell is a former nurse's assistant. She was in the room with Stallworth at the Pickens County Jail. Her testimony countering earlier testimony about rape, saying she didn't recall Stallworth admitting to rape. Prosecutors worked to discredit Crowell by playing back phone calls she had with Stallworth where he sang to her and professed his feelings for her. Crowell said she and Stallworth were just friends. Stallworth's stepfather, James Harris, and Reverend Sylvester Henderson served as character witnesses. Each claimed Stallworth is a peaceful person.
Okay.
Now that wrapped up today. The jury will hear closing arguments back here tomorrow. Live in Birmingham, Valerie Bell, ABC 3340.
So we have two nurses giving two different versions of a conversation by Patrick Stallworth in a room. So the white nurse, Ms. Cox, says he admitted to raping a child. The black nurse, who's a nursing assistant, she says he didn't say that. And this is also a woman who's given her personal information to Patrick, and they've exchanged conversations between each other where he's flirting with her, so on and so forth. What's the truth? Exactly. He's not peaceful in his secret life. I do believe that he's a homosexual man. I believe he's bisexual, whichsoever. I believe he uses women as a ruse. He acts very feminine. He seems feminine. Let me say he looks feminine. I'm going to say he acts because I've never seen him talk. But what I've seen in photographs, that was the first thing I thought about Patrick Stallworth. I said, this man is gay. This man is gay or bisexual. He's using women as a ruse to be on the down low. That's my assertion of him. And many people thought, how did you come up with that, Queen? Queen's got an eye. Because I watch, I listen. And as they say, looks can be deceiving, obviously, in this case. The black nurse, you didn't have any business talking to him outside of business hours. The fact that he had a tablet and was in protective custody, then how could the tablet be in the custody of other people? If he's in protective custody, then that means the tablet shouldn't be out of his peripheral. Stay woke. He sent that message to his aunt saying he was sorry because he knows what he did was wrong, but possibly he's a sadist. He fancies children. He fancies young girls underage. And remember, when he first got arrested, he had pornography on his phone. That is why he got arrested in the first place. They were talking to him about Kamille's case for her missing, and they searched his phone, and he had pornography on the phone, and it was girls under the age of 18 on the phone, and they never specified the age of the girls. So we don't know if it was children that were 5, 10, 16. They never revealed. But that shows he's attracted to children. So he's a sadist. Because you're not going to make me believe he didn't touch that little girl. I don't care what the coroner didn't find. She was in a dumpster for 10 days. Something was going on. And I'm going to jog your memory back. And please forgive what I'm going to say, but it needs to be said. In the beginning, when all this went down and Jerika gave the information to where to find the baby, because that is the one who told the story where the baby could be found, because naturally they probably told her, you're never going to get out of here, blah, 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 go ahead, tell the truth. She went on and told that the baby was in the landfill, or thrown in a dumpster rather, and then they went to the landfill and found the baby. Mind you, the dumpster where she was dumped, a construction dumpster, was at a property that was vacant. And you could walk through a path to that said dumpster for those that don't think either one had anything to do with it. The fact that you hear that the medical examiner says all their DNA was in the blood. So now you got to ask yourself the obvious, where did the blood come from? Patrick, Jerika, or the baby? And why would one of them be bleeding? Come on, y'all, stay woke. Did somebody penetrate the baby? And they couldn't come to a conclusion because her body was too badly decomposed to say if she was touched, fondled, raped, whatever. Jerika said that one night she got up and she saw that I can't even say it. That the little girl was performing oral sex on him. Okay? So what am I supposed to believe? She lied? Because you got to remember they both were lying in the beginning. Stay woke now. I didn't take the child. I don't know the child. but yet he's sending a text message to his aunt in the jail that he's sorry. An agent is testifying that he was crying. So who cries and apologizes, but they ain't do nothing? What you would say is, I'm sorry that the little girl is dead, but I didn't do it. I don't know her. I didn't see her. I didn't pick her up. But he admits that he was on the property. I just played your commentary where he admits to being on the property. He admits to talking to the little girl. Some children. So what makes me think you're not the same person that picked them up and put them inside that SUV? Because you are that person. You and Derica both knew what you were doing because you have one person waddling, one thinner person walking by. You all were out scavenging, trying to get somebody's child on that fateful Saturday. And Kamille Mckinney was the unlucky victim. Allegedly, you've been out talking to two young girls earlier in the day. You both are familiar with Tom Brown. I believe you all assaulted that girl. I believe you sexually assaulted her. I believe you both played a part in that. We know that Derica has a previous history of abuse with her own children. And she doesn't have custody of her children. And she didn't have custody of her children at the time of this crime. Now, perhaps she was lonely and wanted a child because she didn't have her own. I don't know. But we know she doesn't need to have children because she abuses them. So it really doesn't matter with the reasoning for kidnapping Cupcake. The point is she ended up dead. It's not like you kidnapped her and took her in and took care of her. She also had dope in her system. And it wasn't from smelling it. It was ingested, which means it was put in her mouth. I'm going to bring you commentary of the said information. Thank you for joining me. All right, everybody. WSFA is the source. Testimony. Stallworth told jail employee he may have raped Cupcake Mckinney, but he didn't kill her. Patrick Stallworth is on trial for 2 federal kidnapping counts in connection to the disappearance and death of 3-year-old Kamille Cupcake Mckinney. So this is the kidnapping portion of the trial, federal, that he is standing trial for. This was October 3rd. This is the start of the trial. A jury was seated Monday in the first trial involving the death and disappearance of Kamille Cupcake Mckinney. Patrick Stallworth will stand trial on 2 federal kidnapping charges. He also faces a state capital murder count. Testimony by the government's final trial witness. This was today, the 6th. Revealed how close law enforcement came to not recovering Kamille Cupcake Mckinney's body. FBI supervisory special agent and case agent Cynthia Bowe testified law enforcement received a tip that Kamille Mckinney's body could be in a construction waste bin near Patrick Stallworth and his co-defendant Derica Brown's apartment. As a result, law enforcement began to sequester trash from that area in a special portion of the Jefferson County landfill. Bowe testified agents walked to a nearby apartment complex undergoing renovations with 2 large construction waste bins. Coincidentally, the company came to collect the bins while the agents were on site. They were able to stop the transport and have those bins rerouted, with one of which contained Mckinney's body. Assistant United States Attorney Lloyd Peoples asked Bowe, what would have happened if you had came 2 hours later? Let me make sure I reread that because people need to know this information. They got information where to find the child, that the body could be in a construction waste bin near Patrick Stallworth and his co-defendant Derica Brown's apartment. As a result, law enforcement began to sequester trash from that area in a special portion of the Jefferson County landfill. So that means the body, that trash had already made it to the landfill. Bowe testified agents walked to a nearby apartment complex undergoing renovations with 2 large construction waste bins. Coincidentally, the company came to collect the bins. While the agents were on site, they were able to stop the transport and have those bins rerouted. one of which contained Mckinney's body. It seems kind of contradictory. I don't know what I'm reading. Since the United States Attorney Lloyd Peoples asked Bobby, what would have happened if you came 2 hours later? I don't think we would have found her, Bobby responded, as the body would have been transported to a different landfill and mixed with other trash. The government rested its case mid-afternoon. Statements made by the defense's first witness quickly derailed after the government challenged their credibility and attempted to impeach their testimony. Earlier Thursday, the government called Phyllis Cox, a former nurse at the Pickens County Jail where Stallworth's been held ahead of his trial. Cox told the jury Stallworth was sitting at the door of her office when he told her assistant, I may have raped her, but I didn't kill her. She did that. Defense attorney Derek Collins called that former co-worker, Tony Kroll, as the first witness. Kroll testified she didn't remember Stallworth making that statement, and the government began cross-examination. Oh, Lord. This is bad. So we have Stallworth sitting in an office talking. And one nurse says, yeah, I heard him say he raped the child, but he didn't kill her. And the black nurse, the assistant, she said she don't remember him saying such as raping the child. Have you ever told Mr. Stallworth you love him? Peoples asked. I don't recall that, Kroll responded. Peoples then played all jail phone calls to refresh her memory. Stallworth could be heard on the line saying, I think about you. I even dream about you. The next call played Stallworth singing to Collins from the jail line. That was a church song, Kroll sniped. We mostly talk about church. Gasps and laughs were heard in the courtroom. Imagine that. Well, I hadn't heard anything about her being in court yet, so I'm reading the said information. In other calls, Kroll and Stallworth could be heard saying 143, shorthand for saying I love you by using the number of characters in each word. Peoples asked if that's why they meant when saying 143, Kroll said it meant they cared. So here's a difference of opinion once again. 143 is supposed to mean I love you. By whose standards? I don't know because I don't do shorthand. So and Peoples asked if that's what they meant when saying 143. And the lady says it meant that they cared. So first, he's just your friend. Now we get more information from the court documents that you're saying you two care about each other. It still sounds bad, lady. This man killed a kid and you're sitting here talking about you cared for him. So it doesn't really matter to me. Cared, love. Why would you be caring for a man that's killed a child? A man that was riding around with his girlfriend looking for a victim. You care what about him? So let me guess, you're going to say, I care for him in a godly way. I care about his salvation. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're trying to tell? Is that what you're trying to tell the courtroom? Is that you cared about him in a godly manner? Because you said all we talked about was church. I told you that heifer knew they were recording that phone conversation. She knew better, and he did too. And imagine people were gasping in the court and laughing. This is pathetic. The government continued playing calls to make their case for impeachment. Did he just say, I need some of that honey? Peoples asked Kroll. I think he said honey, Kroll responded. Peoples replied, well, that works too. Right, exactly. Before leaving the stand, Kroll testified that she's heard rumors that Stallworth had a physical relationship with another jail employee, which also happens to be one of her family members. Oh, wow, it gets better. Collins called 2 character witnesses, including a pastor who also a longtime family friend, and the defense rested. The jury elected to leave early Thursday and return for closing arguments and deliberation Friday morning. Given the time allocated for closing arguments and charging the jury, they could begin deliberations around noon. Yes, it's my understanding by afternoon, deliberations will start Friday for those that are interested. I do not know that this is televised. I haven't heard anything from Court TV, There's nothing on Court TV. I've gone to the BNC network. There's nothing there in their content. Possibly it's not. I don't know, unless it's just local news there. But I think it's interesting that this woman who's told this man she care for him in code, said she heard rumors that Stallworth had a physical relationship with another jail employee, which also happens to be one of her family members. So who is this family member to Miss Kroll? A cousin, third cousin, first cousin, cousin by marriage? So let me guess. Did you hear that he's well endowed down there? Did that get out as well and you wanted to see what he had going on? Or how are you going to have sexual relations with him as the nurse? Because the door would have to be locked. And the first thing somebody would say is, why is the door locked? You people are sick. It's bad enough the child was killed. These two played possum in the beginning of the investigation. The child had trifling ass mom and daddy, wasn't being watched by the mother or the cousin. No adults were supervising her and these other children. And then now we fast forward almost 3 years later. We've got all this he said, she said, and gossip about people having sex with a fucking baby killer in a damn jail. See, this is what I keep trying to tell you all. One thing begets another. All it takes is one person to bring down the house of cards. And it all started with the child not being watched. So now you got gossip about people having sex with the damn defendant in the damn jail. Oh, Lord have mercy. This is bad. All right, everybody, let me finish this information. Oh. One second, everybody. So Kroll testified about hearing that one of her relatives had sex with him. Collins called two character witnesses, including a pastor, who's also a longtime family friend, and the defense rested. And as I said, this is to get started tomorrow with arguments and deliberation. Thursday is expected to be the last day of testimony in this case, which was today. And they had a DNA specialist, an expert in emergency medicine and medical toxicology, law enforcement officers, and a nurse who treated Patrick in the Pickens County Jail. The government called Jefferson County Sheriff's Office Detective Jeannie Miller to introduce a text message reportedly sent by Patrick Stallworth on a tablet in the Jefferson County Jail. Miller explained that inmates use tablets for live visits and paid to use the tablet to text, play games, and order food. Evidence showed a text was sent to the Stallworth family member from his account that stated, "I'm sorry I did this!" It was an accident. That poor baby's family. The message was sent 11 days after Kamille Cupcake's McKinney's body was recovered. So you see they're using tablets to maneuver in, to play games, order food, and live visits. Very interesting. But this is what's strange about this information. The defense asked whether it was possible another inmate hacked into Stallworth's tablet. Miller said it was possible. However, he was in protective custody with only 7 other inmates at the time. Well, that's not protective custody. Protective custody to me would be he was in a cell alone. Having 7 other inmates, that's not protective custody. That means he was in what? Custody with people who committed the same crimes. But yes, it's possible that somebody could have sent the message, "Hey, I did this," pretended to be him. I don't know. The government worked further. Proved Stallworth wrote this message by comparing the other texts he sent, many of which used 2 periods, which corresponded with the text message in question. The text aligned with other jail communication. Stallworth messaged with the same person the day before to set up a time to speak over the phone. The highlighted was sent to them after that phone call. A nurse who treated Stallworth while he was being held at the Pickens County Jail testified she heard Stallworth taking a startling statement to her assistant back in March. Make a startling statement, Phyllis Cox said Stallworth was sitting at the door of her office when he told her assistant, "I may have raped her, but I didn't kill her. She did that." Cox said she was in shock, but at the time didn't realize what case Stallworth was connected to or why he was in jail. The defense honed in on the months it took before Cox reported the comment to her supervisor. "You didn't feel that it was important to tell them immediately?" Collins asked. "I was in shock," she replied. FBI DNA analyst Constance Fisher texted the evidence taken from Stallworth's apartment, which included the plastic mattress cover introduced on day 2 of the trial. In this instance, she was working to determine whether the suspects, Patrick Stallworth, his co-defendant Derek Brown, and the victim, Kamille Cupcake Mckinney, contributed to the biological evidence swathed from that plastic cover. Fisher testified that she used a reference sample from all 3 individuals and compared that to DNA extracted from the blood on the cover. Of the 2 stains tested, both returned higher probability of all 3 individuals' DNA were on that evidence. Defense attorney Derek Collins cross-examined Fisher, asking whether she could confirm if the strands of DNA could have been deposited there at different times. "Yes, that's possible," Fisher responded. Dr. Stacy Hale, MD, an emergency medicine and medical toxicology expert, testified about the biological response to certain drugs. On day 3 of the trial, the physician who conducted Cupcake's autopsy confirmed the presence of methamphetamine and the drug trazodone. Hale stated that meth mimics the body's sympathetic nervous system by activating the fight or flight response, noting individuals who are under the influence are typically erratic, paranoid, fidgety, and restless. She added that children have a similar response, however, they often cry inconsolably. The government is expected to rest its case Thursday afternoon. Jury deliberations could begin first thing on Friday morning. Day 3 was Wednesday, the 5th. Let's talk about what happened there. Wednesday was an emotionally challenging afternoon in court. The government called FBI Special Agent Stanley Ruffin, who recovered 3-year-old Kamille Mckinney's body. Ruffin was part of a large team assigned to search a landfill where trash was dumped from local apartments. "Did you know it was a body right away?" asked United States Attorney, Assistant Criminal Chief Lloyd Peoples. "I saw what I thought was a doll lying there," Ruffin described. "For a moment, everything slowed down. I closed my eyes and tried to make sure what I saw was real." Ruffin had trouble speaking as he recalled Cupcake's body being put in a bag to be transported for an autopsy. At this point, she'd been missing for 10 days. Due to the nature of the case and the burden of proof of the government must meet, they had to show the jury very sensitive images of Cupcake in the landfill. Quickly, several jurors became emotional, wiping away tears. The court quickly timed the shots, holding them for no more than 3 seconds each, warning the jury in advance of a new picture so they would be prepared. I wondered if anybody got sick. And I was wondering if somebody cried. And you did hear that they wiped away tears. How many cried when they saw these pictures? As a seasoned 26-year-old veteran agent, Ruffin admitted he'd seen a lot of things. However, everyone involved in this recovery had to go through counseling. "I was involved in 9/11 and thought it would be the worst thing I'd experienced, but I had never experienced something like that with a child," he stated. Ruffin retired shortly after his assignment in Birmingham. Dr. Daniel Dye, MD, the forensic pathologist who performed Cupcake's autopsy, testified next. Dye explained the decomposition in his case posed a challenge to his work. He confirmed Cupcake had a contusion on her head, pointing toward the hairline area with swelling on the side of the face that could be associated with blunt force trauma. Please listen to what I'm saying. I brought you commentary earlier in this live to tell you that the child was hit, had injuries while alive. So that means one of these MFs hit the baby. Why are you hitting a child? It's bad enough you kidnapped her, possibly kidnapped her for nefarious reasons. So now you're beating the baby and drugging the baby. And possibly she was crying because, as you heard in this commentary, that is one of the side effects of taking the drugs. The child will cry inconsolably. So maybe the child wouldn't stop crying, so they started beating the baby up. Wow. This is bad. This is real bad. Dye ruled the cause of death in this case asphyxia or suffocation. and agreed that injury could be associated with the head being pressed down against a hard object. This is consistent with a recorded statement Stallworth made to police explaining his girlfriend, Derica Brown, killed Cupcake by putting her hand over the child's nose and mouth until she couldn't breathe. The toxicology report also found methamphetamine trazodone in the child's system, stating this also played a role in Cupcake's death. So her death is two-part: drugs and asphyxiation. So what happened? Did somebody put their hand over the baby's nose and mouth? Did somebody press her face too hard, head too hard? Pressed her face or head into a pillow? Pressed a pillow onto her head, face, nose, mouth. How did they asphyxiate the child? The government called Birmingham Police Sergeant Talana Brown, who was also involved in interviewing both Stallworth and Brown in the initial phases of investigation. The prosecution started by playing an interview with Stallworth's co-defendant, Derica Brown. In the interview, Brown insinuates Stallworth dumped Cupcake's body in a dumpster. Talana Brown testified she passed along that tip to the FBI. During cross-examination, Talana Brown testified that Derica Brown lied to police early in the investigation. The defense worked to shift the focus away from early testimony, which questioned whether Stallworth was forthcoming with authorities. Defense attorney Derek Collins showed the jury a video recording of one of Derica Brown's interviews with police. "I'll allow him if y'all want me to," Brown told police, referencing Stallworth. "I'm not going to jail for nobody, and do y'all want me to say?" She said, "What do y'all want me to say?" Very interesting. FBI cellular analyst Blake Downing was called as the last witness of the day. Downing was tasked with tracking Stallworth's cell phone during the investigation. He testified about the technology used to determine Stallworth's location through the phone's signal. The government and the defenses are expected to rest on Thursday. The jury could begin deliberations Friday morning. So what did the phone ping say? Do they put him in Tom Brown? Well, he admitted that. "Yeah, I was there and I talked to some kids." And he is believed to be the person on the camera in the dark along with Derica Brown. One person walks by, then a second person walks by, and the children follow in behind the second person. He's on surveillance camera at a store right near, if I'm not mistaken, the Tom Brown housing development, buying a lot of candy. It was said that earlier in the day, or at some point during that day, he and her were passing out candy to children and flyers. And that was probably a ruse to get children to come close to them, to get them to get in the car. And we've known this candy as an old ruse to entice children, but obviously in 2019, it still worked. Very baffling information. Some of the information in this update may be difficult to read, inappropriate for some audiences. Wednesday morning, prosecutors began to peel back the layers of the investigation into Kamille Cupcake Mckinney's disappearance and death. How Patrick Stallworth and Derek Brown were developed as suspects in this case. The first witness, Birmingham Police Detective Jonathan Ross, who oversaw the investigation and massive search effort. The prosecution spent more than an hour playing video and audio recordings from Stallworth's interviews with police. The jury first saw a portion of Stallworth's initial recorded interview with police on October 13th, 2019, and note that this was a Sunday. During that meeting, Stallworth said he was at Tom Brown Village, which correlated with the same day and time of Cupcake's disappearance. Stallworth stated he walked around the area and saw children playing with a mouse, consistent with the video the jury saw on Tuesday, which showed a man approaching two toddlers at the Tom Brown development. The second recording took juries back to the interview room at BPD the day Cupcake's body was recovered. Stallworth requested to speak to Ross. Jurors attentively read the transcript off the screen as the lengthy audio recording played from that interview. During this meeting, Stallworth told police Brown brought a baby home and killed her. Stallworth told officers he woke up and saw a baby on the couch next to Brown and didn't know how the child made it to his house. "I told her, you need to get this baby out of here," Stallworth told police. "I said, this ain't your baby." Stallworth said he went back to sleep, and when he woke up, the baby was gone. "I asked her where it was. It. You hear that? Where it was. Not she, but it." Okay. She said she took it back, Stallworth stated. She kept trying to talk about the baby and how she wanted to keep the baby. He revealed to police that Brown wanted him to do some things to the child, referencing inappropriately touching the toddler. An investigator asked Stallworth whether forensic examiners would find his DNA during Cupcake's autopsy. She killed her, sobbed Stallworth. I tried to keep her from choking that baby. Police asked him to show how she choked the baby, and he held up his hand over his nose and mouth, according to the recording. Assistant United States Attorney Blake Milner paused the recording, asked Ross to clarify the general crux of the conversation. He watched Derek Brown put his hands over her nose and mouth and kill Cupcake and then took out the trash? Milner questioned. Ross responded, that's correct. Defense attorney Derek Collins cross-examined Ross, asking the detective to confirm the statements Stallworth made to the police that were true. Ross agreed Stallworth told the truth about being in Tom Brown and stopping at various service stations. Hello, King. The court recessed at noon. Testimony will resume at 1 p.m. While the witnesses haven't moved as quickly as expected, the government still believes it will rest Thursday. Let's see what we got here. WBRC. Well, I can't get this volume to work. Well,
and we want to warn you, some of the information is hard to hear. One of the people accused in this case, Patrick Stallworth, is standing trial on federal kidnapping charges this week. Jen Horton joins us live now with today's testimony. And Jen, prosecutors sharing what Kamille went through in the final moments of her life today.
That's right. Today, they really started to peel back the layers of the investigation to tell the jury exactly how Patrick Stallworth and his girlfriend, Derek Brown, were developed as prime suspects in this case. One of the key pieces of evidence we saw or heard today, an audio recording of Stallworth's interview with BPD after Cupcake's body was recovered. He told police his girlfriend killed the baby. He said he tried to intervene, but Brown covered the child's face and she was suffocated. He sobbed in that recording, telling police that Brown wanted him to molest the little girl, something he said never happened. In that audio recording, we also noticed that Stallworth never called Cupcake by name. Today, when that was played in the courtroom, he showed no emotion. In Birmingham, Jennifer Horton, WBRC, Fox 6 News, on your side.
All right, everybody. How do you feel about that information? Who told the truth? Did he touch the baby? Did he give the baby drugs? Because drugs were found in her system. So somebody gave her the drugs, and they were drugs that belonged to Patrick Stallworth. So what are the odds that you have a child in your house that you allegedly don't know how she got there, but when they do an autopsy, they're drugs that belong to you and they're in your government name? Do the math. Did he sexually assault her? But they couldn't find out that he did because the baby's body was so badly decomposed. Because remember, as I told you earlier, Jerica said that when she woke up or came out of the room at one point in the morning, the child was performing oral sex on the grown man. Did she make that up? Did she ask him to touch or fondle the child or have sex with the child? He obliged her. Or he took it upon himself to have sex with the baby, but Jerica didn't say anything. I think they're both complicit in taking the child, luring the child, putting drugs in the baby's system. I bet they touched her because you have to use deduction. And why would these two people want to take a child and then each one start turning the hand and finger at the other one? Who did what? Who said what? Who suffocated? Who killed the baby? Who molested the baby? Each one pointing the finger. So I won't doubt they did something to her sexually. Just because they can't find out, that means nothing to me. Because my thing is, what are you taking the child for anyway? And why would you put her in a dumpster? And why would you allow her to kill the baby? You want me to believe you didn't notice her choking the baby or covering the baby? You're just as complicit because, one, you had no business taking the baby in the first place. So you're guilty for that if you didn't touch her. So as I last told you, Stallworth had told this agent he was in Tom Brown and stopping at various service stations. Why was he stopping at different service stations? Is it true he was getting candy because he was trying to stop smoking, or is it because it was to feed his dope habit? And it's been known for people who take heroin. My father said to me many years ago, they crave sweets, like sweet pops, sweet drinks. So was he feeding a dope habit? Craving sweets didn't have anything to do with stopping smoking. He was a dope head. She was a dope head. They doped up that baby deliberately to subdue her so she couldn't fight. And the only reason you would give a baby drugs, stay woke now, is to sexually assault her. You're going to have control over her either way. So really drugs weren't even needed. And you can argue back and forth why they would give the baby drugs. You know they didn't have any business taking the child, so they definitely didn't have any business giving the baby dope. But that would subdue her to where she wouldn't be fussing and scratching while you are trying to touch her inappropriately or put her mouth on your body parts. Most definitely. But as I said, you're the bigger person. You could subdue the child either way. And I think that's what happened. The little girl knew she was in harm's way, and she fought back whatever they were trying to do to her. That's why she had contusions or whatever on her head, because they beat the baby or pressed the baby's head down some type of way, drugged the baby, and I believe they sexually assaulted her. I believe they both assaulted the baby. I do believe that. On the 4th, which was Tuesday, they spent the remainder of the day calling witnesses and introducing evidence that will put Patrick Stallworth at the Tom Brown village at the time that Cupcake went missing. Government used surveillance video to reconstruct a timeline of Stallworth's day, which started around noon. An initial video shows Stallworth purchasing candy at a service station. Other video later that afternoon showed what appears to be the Toyota Sequoia registered to Stallworth's co-defendant, Derica Brown, stop and speak to some girls walking near Hayes K-8 school. A 14-year-old girl who attended athletic practice at Hayes testified that she and her friend were stopped by a man and woman in a Toyota as they walked home. Her testimony revealed the man, who suspected to be Stallworth, asked her if she'd seen someone they were looking for, then asked her if she wanted any candy. The teen said that's when her friend spoke up. She told me to run, the student said. We ran down the alley in the projects. When asked if she could pick that man out in the courtroom, there was strong hesitation. Stallworth looks noticeably different from his mug shot taken in 2019. And I think he had maybe a little more hair on his head. Not much, but did have a little bit more hair. And his hair is shaven down a bit in court this week. I want to make sure I'm repeating all this. So all this started at around noon. And it shows him getting candy that day at a service station. Then it shows him again at the car, the truck, registered to defendant Derica Brown, stop and speak to some girls near the Hayes K-8. So both of these two were in a car together. I guess sometime after getting candy at the service station or throughout the day. I don't know which one is which. The girls take off running, but yet when it's time to testify, one of the girls can't point him out. So did the other girl testify then? Just curious. Oh, this is crazy. A grainy piece of video from a neighbor's surveillance camera showed a man approach two toddler-aged children playing in a field. The FBI agent Jonathan Spade testified the time of the video correlates with the time frame Cupcake was reported missing. Defense attorney Derek Collins cross-examined the Spade, asking whether he could prove that was Stallworth on the video. It's consistent with a person like Stallworth, Spade replied. Collins pressed Spade, questioning whether he could prove that was Cupcake. That was right near Cupcake's house where she was that night. This toddler is wearing shorts. I know she was wearing shorts. Other evidence, including statements Stallworth made to police, pointed to him being at the Tom Brown village that evening. According to video from one of his interviews with Birmingham police, he and Brown were in Tom Brown village searching for the father of Brown's children. Is that even true? Because you see, the one thing I've learned about these types of stories, you don't know what's the truth. You always have to remember they were lying about looking at kids, giving them candy. Why would they tell them, oh, yeah, I was looking for the baby daddy? We don't know if she's really looking for the baby daddy. Did the baby daddy live there in the Tom Brown housing development? So if you're looking for the baby daddy, how is it that you end up kidnapping 2 children? How do you go from looking for your baby daddy to taking kids? And what are you looking for the baby daddy for when your aunt is the one that takes care of your children, Derica Brown? You know I know this because I've spoken to your aunt. Ding! And she refused to come on this network last year to give her testimony to how she came to get your children and anything that's been said to her in confidence about this case, as for fear that people would harass her and try to harm her and those children. And I understand that because I've seen how they get down in Birmingham, and there are some loose screws down there. They seem to like to be batty-batted. So I understand she has to be able to take care of herself, take care of these kids that's been left in her custody. Plus, she also has a lot of other children that belong to her biologically. She has a house full. So she declined to speak to Everyday Shenanigans on a live stream so you all could hear how it came to be that she got Derica's children. But I brought you content pertaining to that. We can go into that at a later date. But nonetheless, Derica Brown did not have custody of any of her children at the time of this abduction of Cupcake. Once again, allegedly they were in Tom Brown searching for Brown's baby daddy. The final video showed the Toyota Sequoia pulled up to another service station after the time Cupcake was reported missing. Brown is seen exiting the passenger door and walking inside the business, which is consistent with testimony that Stallworth was driving that night. So here we have surveillance near the time of the abduction, and both parties are in the vehicle together. So that means they were complicit in taking the child, from Tom Brown. FBI agent Kyle King testified that he was part of the group that served a search warrant at Stallworth's apartment on October 18, 2019, days after the disappearance. At this time, search efforts to locate Cupcake were still underway. The prosecution filed through pictures of the apartment as the FBI found it, showing a picture of a mattress with a plastic cover with a noticeable red stain. The cover appeared to be consistent with the plastic material that often covers new mattresses. Today, the jury was able to see that plastic cover in person. 2 FBI agents opened the evidence packaging and unfolded it in front of the jury. During opening statements, the prosecution said an expert witness would testify that both defendants' DNA and Cupcake's DNA were found on a plastic mattress cover inside of Stallworth's apartment. The government called nearly a dozen witnesses Tuesday. They expected to have at least one more day full of testimony before resting their case. The trial resumes Wednesday. As you know, it's now going into Friday. Friday will start deliberations for a verdict against Patrick Stallworth on a federal trial of kidnapping Kamille, Cupcake, Mckinney. You're hearing this commentary that blood was on the mattress cover. It's also been stated by an agent that there was different blood spots on the mattress cover. So I'm assuming that they tested this one big spot. Well, what and where did that blood come from? From whom? Because it says it's a mixture of all 3. Stay woke now. So why would there be blood on a mattress cover? And why would a child's DNA be down there if indeed you didn't kidnap her? You don't know her. You're not friends with her family. You never babysat her. But her blood, or let's just say her DNA, was in a blood stains on a mattress cover. Explain that to us. Help us understand. Just saying. Day 2, October 4th, Tuesday. The government took jurors to the home where Kamille Mckinney was kidnapped to begin day 2 of the trial. Now, this is funny to me because allegedly she didn't live in the Tom Brown. The cousin, Miss Long, lived there. But anyway, Shanita Long lived in Tom Brown in Avondale, where Mckinney and her family visited October 12, 2019. Long testified Mckinney and her daughter Ava were best friends. When Mckinney and her family arrived, Long said Ava and Mckinney ran to play at a birthday party outside her apartment. Okay, so now the birthday party is being mentioned here in this testimony. When it was time for Mckinney and her family to leave, Long said Mckinney's older brother ran inside and said he couldn't find her. Long said her daughter looked startled. I asked Ava, where was Cupcake? Long testified. She said Cupcake got in the car with that man. He took her to get candy at the store. Interesting. So did they tell the children what they were going to do, and it was overheard by Kamille's brother or another child? Is that what happened? That they heard and saw this man approaching them wanting the children to take the candy, and they came back and told this woman, Miss Long, April Thomas's cousin, that the little girl got in a car with the two suspects in a ruse to go get candy. Because, you know, when I first repeated this in the report, I thought, well, how's it that she saw him and she wasn't around? So obviously, one of the children came back and told it. And that was her testimony in court. Interesting. So the mother talked to the little girl, who's the age, I guess, of Cupcake. So I want to make sure I'm repeating this correctly. Because you got to remember, Mckinney's older brother is the one that went outside to look for her but couldn't find her. Long said her daughter looked startled. I asked Ava, where was Cupcake? Long testified. She said Cupcake got in the car with that man. He took her to get candy at the store. The defense worked to keep this testimony off the record, arguing the validity of a statement by a child, which was overruled. Long recounted everyone feverishly began searching for Mckinney, going door to door while others searched local service stations. People started searching and we found her shoes in the backyard. That's when we knew she was really missing, Long recalled. Less than an hour later, Long called 911 to report Mckinney's disappearance. Well, why didn't the mother call? See, this is why I said the story is still a hot mess to me. When they first spin this in the beginning, you would have thought that Long is the one that said she saw the kids get in the car. But then now, with more detail of what actually was said in court, her little girl is the one that repeats the child got in the car with the defendants. So why is Miss Long the one calling 911? I don't understand. So once they found her shoes in the backyard, less than an hour later, Long called 911 to report the child missing. Body camera video from the responding officer showed Long, Mckinney's mother, April Thomas, and several children outside searching for Mckinney. The children gave the officer a vehicle description, a blue Toyota with a brown bumper. Evidence showed the vehicle registered to Derica Brown, Stallworth's girlfriend and co-defendant, was a blue Toyota Sequoia with gold trim. The government also called the FBI case agent Eric Salvador, who recounted the initial days of the investigation and how the agency developed its case. Assistant United States Attorney Lloyd Peoples used Salvador's testimony to introduce various surveillance videos he collected during the investigation. The videos reconstructed Stallworth and Brown's movements throughout the day Mckinney was kidnapped. One of the videos showed Stallworth purchasing candy around noon at a service station, which parallels the testimony Mckinney was lured away with candy. Another video showed the defendant stopping at a service station in the blue Toyota SUV later that day. Brown was seen exiting the passenger door and walked inside the store. The court recessed for lunch afternoon. Testimony will resume after 1 p.m. And this was earlier testimony, everybody. WBRC is the source, Fox 6 News.
In the trial, trial for one of the two people charged in the kidnapping and killing of 3-year-old Kamille Cupcake McKinney. Let's go ahead and try and get back with Jen real quick. Jen?
They have the third witness of the day on the stand. It's an FBI case agent. Right now, they're using videos, surveillance videos, to reconstruct the day ahead of the alleged kidnapping of Kamille Cupcake McKinney. The FBI is using surveillance videos that show Patrick Stallworth and his co-defendant Derek Brown stopping at various gas stations. Yesterday, in opening statements, the prosecution said that they would prove that Derek Brown attempted to lure Cupcake away from a birthday party at Tom Brown Village by giving her candy. They are showing videos this afternoon of Patrick Stallworth going in gas stations, buying candy, upwards of $20 of candy, as early as noon that same day. That's as far as they had gotten when I stepped out of the courtroom, but they're clearly trying to reconstruct the timeline to put Stallworth at the scene of the crime, which we expect we'll probably get to after lunch today. Some of the biggest key points of testimony started with the first witness of the day. It was a cousin to Kamille Cupcake McKinney, and she actually lived in Tom Brown Village. That's who they were visiting at the time of the kidnapping. Her daughter, a 3-year-old, was Cupcake's very best friend, and it was her daughter that told her that Cupcake got in a truck with a man who went to take her to get some candy. Of course, as you can imagine, the defense worked to get that statement struck from the record and keep that from the jury, but it was ultimately overruled. That's something that I think will go a long way in this trial in terms of putting Stallworth at the scene of the crime. They're not just quite there yet. We're thinking they may be able to get through 5 or so witnesses by the end of the day. Yesterday, the government told us they expect to call around 20 total witnesses. That means we've got a lot of work to do to get to that point. They still expect to wrap up this trial by Friday. We'll be here covering it throughout the day, all week. In Birmingham, Jennifer Horton, WBRC, Fox 6 News, on your side.
All right, everybody. So you hear the child is the one that told the mother that Cupcake got in her car. Because I was a bit livid in the beginning of this live saying, my God, don't tell me you all changing the story that you saw the child get in the car. Because it's like, what would be the purpose of the search? But you hear it's reworded that her child was the one with Cupcake and witnessed her getting into the car with the defendants. On Monday, this trial started. A 16-person jury was seated in Patrick Stallworth's federal kidnapping trial on Monday. It took attorneys roughly 5 hours to strike a jury in a high-profile case. The jury composition, 13 women and 3 men. Stallworth elected not to move the trial to a different division, which would pull jurors from outside Jefferson County. Attorneys spent only an hour with the jury late Monday outlining what they can expect to see during the trial. Opening statements, Assistant United States Lloyd Peoples, Criminal Division Chief, promised jurors the government would present evidence that links Stallworth with McKinney's disappearance and death. I will warn you that some of this evidence will not be easy to see or hear, but in order to bring justice, we're going to ask that you do exactly that, Peoples explained. The evidence previewed by the government included phone records, DNA evidence, Stallworth's apartment, DNA from McKinney's autopsy, and recordings from Stallworth's 5 meetings with law enforcement. People's alleged Stallworth statements to law enforcement shifted over the course of investigation. Shortly after Kamille's body was recovered, the defendant admits to knowing things that only Cupcake's kidnapper would know, stated Peoples. Let me repeat that. The defendant admits to knowing things that only the kidnapper of this child would know. Peoples pointed to new evidence, a text message Stallworth sent from the Jefferson County Jail. 10 days after her after her body was found, a message said, "I'm sorry I did this. It was an accident. That poor baby's family," Peoples quoted to the jury. Defense attorney Derek Collins quickly told the jury there's only one fact established in this case, right? The only fact is that Mr. Stallworth is an innocent man, Collins explained to the jury. Collins said Stallworth wasn't involved in the crime and went as far as to say the government doesn't have the evidence to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. "I can tell you who did it," Collins said of McKinney's kidnapping. "She's the author behind all this, Derek Brown." Brown is Stallworth's co-defendant and girlfriend. Collins shifted the blame to Brown, stating she couldn't handle losing custody of her children, which prompted McKinney's kidnapping. "Evidence would show my client didn't know Brown kidnapped Cupcake," Collins told the jury. The government called McKinney's mother, April Thomas, as their first witness. Now, this should be interesting. Thomas described October 12th to the jury, the day of Mckinney's disappearance and the last time she saw her daughter alive. Thomas and her children were visiting a family member's house in Tom Brown, where Cupcake often played with her cousins. As the sun began to set, Thomas asked her son to go tell Cupcake it's time to go home. He was panicked. He came in and said he couldn't find her, Thomas recalled. I looked and couldn't find her. All I found were her shoes. I was sick to my stomach. Thomas was the first and final witness of the day. The government expects to call upwards of 20 witnesses over the course of the trial. Testimony resumed Tuesday morning. Okay. Prosecutors allege that Patrick Stallworth and Derek Brown used candy to lure Mckinney away from a birthday party in the Tom Brown Village, October 2019. Following an extensive citywide search, Mckinney's body was recovered in a dumpster a week later. Forensic evidence indicated McKinney likely fought for her life, testimony revealed. Stallworth's DNA was found under McKinney's fingernails. During a state court hearing, investigators also testified DNA from McKinney, Stallworth, and Brown was found on a plastic bed cover in the couple's apartment. Both faced federal kidnapping charges and capital murder. A jury is expected to be seated in Stallworth's federal kidnapping Monday the 3rd, which has already transpired. Chief Judge Scott Kugler anticipated opening statements will begin Monday afternoon, with jury deliberations slated for later in the week, which will be tomorrow, everybody. Basically just recapping everything. Now, leading up to the trial, Stallworth and Brown's defense argued to suppress statements they independently made to police in the initial phases of the investigation. Stallworth's motion was denied. A ruling hasn't been entered in Brown's case. Brown's kidnapping trial is scheduled for November in Tuscaloosa. Brown's change of venue request was granted earlier this year. Well, that's interesting to know. After the federal case are adjudicated, both are scheduled to stand trial on state capital murder counts. If found guilty, they could face the death penalty. So what is going on right now is that Patrick Stallworth is in court this week for kidnapping. That's what he's facing. But later, he and Derica will face each a murder count of Cupcake. So I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on right now down in Alabama. They are facing a death penalty after this trial is over. So listen to what I'm saying. This is a federal kidnapping charge pertaining to Patrick Stallworth in this kidnapping of Kamille. Later, he will go to trial, a state trial for a murder count of the baby. As a result, law enforcement began to sequester trash from that area in a special portion of the Jefferson County landfill. Bobby testified agents walked to a nearby apartment complex, which I've already told you this, and there were two large construction waste bins undergoing renovations. With these two bins, coincidentally, agents happened to be on site as the company arrived to remove those bins and were able to divert them to the special area of the landfill. As agents were canvassing the area, the company came to remove the bin and were looking at two large construction waste bins full of debris. This is News 12, WSFA. I'm going to stop there because I don't need to rehash all of this. Most of it's basic information. So we do have testimony now that the mother did testify. I was curious if she testified because I didn't hear any mention of that in the audios that I played you originally during this live. I'm already approaching 2 hours. But we now hear that she told them she was there. Children went outside, sent the son to go look for the little girl, and he never found her. You hear from Miss Long, the cousin, that her child is the one to say that Cupcake got in the car with the defendants under the ruse of getting candy. Oh, Lordy. What a mess. Why did they not let the reporters see the pictures in the court? Will they face death? Will he be found guilty on the kidnapping charge? Some of you still don't believe he's involved. One person in the chat said he's innocent. How could you think he's innocent if his DNA is on a mattress cover with Derica's and the baby They didn't know the baby. Then what is her DNA doing on a mattress cover? What is his DNA doing under her fingernails if they didn't know her? How is it that her body was thrown in a dumpster next to their apartment complex in an empty apartment construction bin? Because he carried her over there. What did they carry her in? A tote bag, a bin, a bag, or did he drive her over there? Know that you can walk between the properties in a trail. So possibly they walked the baby over there in a bag. She was just 3. He's strong enough to carry a baby in a plastic bag, throw her in a dumpster. How horrible. And just imagine if Jerika hadn't have confessed to where the baby could be found, they would not have found her because they already said that trash bin at that construction site, apartment complex, would have been diverted to another locale, another landfill. Wouldn't have found her. What made Jerika speak? I'd like to know, what did they say? I also like to know, did they record their interrogations with the two? Is there a live recording? That's something I'd like to know. Very, very strange information. Okay. Some of you are welcome. Sorry it's taking so long to get all this out, but as I said, I had to recap all the information. One second. Oh, this is... the things that people do is just so baffling to me. Killing a kid. What kind of person kills a child? You're wrong to kill an adult for no reason. But kill a child. And we know that most children are kidnapped for nefarious reasons. We don't have to go into those details of what people do to children. Use your imagination. But usually it is for sexual purposes. I think most people know that. Nobody's going to believe she went and got a child, doped the child up, she and this guy, and then just decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and suffocate her. Because you can't believe anything that they're trying to say that the other one said or did. They both are complicit. They're both on camera trying to lure children. So they were together, Tom Brown. They were in the stores buying the candy. That was the rules they were using to get children or child in their car. I am curious to why they didn't take the other little girl. What made them choose Cupcake over her? Is it a matter of appearance? She's known to have worn hair bows. Maybe she was dressed, I don't know, a certain way that enticed them. You never know what makes a sicko attracted to a child. But there are people who are attracted to children. And this will lead one to believe that perhaps both of these two are sadists. And now you would have to ask, did she ever molest her children? I can't remember what the aunt told me about any allegations of her molesting her own children. I can't remember because it's been a while since she and I talked. That's why I wanted her to give her commentary pertaining to how she came to get the children. But there were allegations of abuse by Jerika Brown with her children. It has been alleged that she put one of the children in a washing machine. I do not know if the machine was on or not, or if it had water in it, but nonetheless, the child was put in the washing machine. I also brought you content pertaining to her going on the run after kidnapping her child or children from this aunt's house. And there was a police chase, and she wrecked her car, and she caught a kidnapping charge in Alabama for that. And that was right before, a year or so before the kidnap of Kamille, if I'm not mistaken. Did she steal this baby because she wanted to have a child again? I don't know. But the end result is what's most important. The kidnapping is wrong, anyway. But how does a child end up dead if indeed you wanted a baby? Well, why would you kill the baby? Why would you kill a child? You want a baby. Let's just say it's true. She wanted a kid. Okay, so how did the child end up dead? How did the child end up asphyxiated? What's that blood stain and stains on the mattress cover with the child's DNA in it? What did you all do to the child? Why would you dope up a child? See, none of that makes any sense. But as I've told you all, you can't believe anything that they've said, because once your foot is caught in the trap, you're going to say anything to get yourself out of that situation. So he made up stuff. She made up stuff. You don't really know what's the truth, but I do believe they both lured the child from the location, went to the store and got candy, took the child home. I do believe they possibly bathed the child. He said the child was bathed. I do remember that being mentioned in the court documents. The child was bathed, took her hair bows off. And I believe they had their way with her. I have no idea. But I think people need to own the fact that these children were not being watched, and anything could have happened to these children. That's the spoken word. You cannot leave children unattended no time of day. And definitely when dark 30 hits, you can't just leave a child out to fend for themselves. A child urinating on herself, peeing on herself, going in a house, changing herself, or somebody changed her, and then you push her right back out the damn door as if you didn't give a damn about her. And I know you didn't care about her, because that means that she was out all damn evening. She hadn't even had dinner, except for whatever she got from the birthday party that she was not invited to. And I think it's in poor taste to still be carrying that lie that she went missing from a party. She didn't go missing from a party because she wasn't at a party when they kidnapped her. So you can't even keep using that ruse. It was a party. No, it was not. You weren't invited. Your kids were not invited. And that party was probably over with anyway when she got kidnapped. She's all the way around the building, unattended, out of sight. So where is the birthday party in the bouncy house in correlation to where the Sequoia was parked? Nowhere. You all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Keep saying that. You were never invited to the party. You didn't know the girl who threw the party. Your kids didn't know her kids. She didn't know you. You didn't know her, allegedly. And she told all that on Facebook. And yet now, even in court, you're still riding that damn story like it's the truth. And I used to get so pissed off when I used to hear it on the news. Oh, she was at a birthday party. No, she was not. Because you're basically saying that she got kidnapped at a party with witnesses. So that's why we know it's not true. You mean to tell me these two just walk up in the middle of a party and take a kid, nobody would have said anything? You know damn well that party went down when it was daylight savings time outside. Them kids were around the building somewhere playing, out of sight, out of mind. Nobody watching them, no supervision. There was no party there in that parking lot where those kids went missing. Stop it. And it's time for you all to own the truth. You weren't watching your damn kids, and that's how Derica Brown and Patrick Stallworth got your fucking kids. And the behavior of the mother thereafter, I have no respect for her, and I still don't have respect for her. And it's coming up 3 years since I learned all this mess. And all the shit that went down with the parents and the social media bullshit on Facebook and all that mess with Two Guns Veto and all that. That to show you how ratchet these people are. Not were, are. And I know they ain't changed their stripes. They're still probably wrapped up in drama. He said, she said. And God rest Planet of the Fate. He was one of the main people that talked about this story pertaining to Cupcake besides myself on this YouTube. And he passed away. He passed away. But he dug deep into this storyline and the after effects of the participants that got immersed in the story pertaining to Two Guns and Dominic, the child's father. And that shows you how ratchet it got when it started being a story just about the daddy and this rapper. Stuff that didn't have nothing to do with this kid. But the father brought that man's name into the storyline and it took off running. And it was the hype on YouTube a few years ago. Sad and pathetic. But that was the topic of the day. When Two Guns Veto didn't have anything to do with that story about that baby, and you don't hear his name mentioned during this trial, so that should tell you something. Those two demons took the baby. Not two guns, not Bubba guns, not Pookie guns, but Patrick Stallworth and Derica Brown. And I keep telling you people that all it takes is one person to bring down a house of cards. I'm going to keep saying that. It takes one person to fuck up a good thing. I don't care if it's a relationship. I don't care if it's a friendship. All it takes is one person to make one bad move, and they can destroy a whole person's well-being. Cause them nothing but trouble, strife. Have them up all night, upset, cussing, fussing, crying. That's why you have to be aware of the company you keep. You have to be aware of the company you keep, because the company you keep is what's going to determine if you stay afloat. And a lot of people are not alive just because of the company they kept. And I bring you that content pertaining to Debbie Collier. Some of us believe her daughter is the culprit in her murder. She's a drug addict. Believe the boyfriend is also on drugs, possibly. This lady is no longer alive because she didn't know when to fold when dealing with her daughter. Same thing with this case. It's all the same. You didn't watch your child, so some demons came along and picked her up. You have to own the part that you play. When you're dealing with people, when you're negligent, it's all the same. Own your part. Can't blame everybody else when you're a willing participant. And to this day, there's no acknowledgement that these people didn't do their job watching this kid. And we know the children are going to get out of sight. That's common sense. But as I told people, I got a feeling this little girl has been unattended before October 12th, 2019. And there were videos that came to light showing the little girl riding her bicycle ahead of the mother and had already made it around the corner where they lived. Well, how long do you think it takes for somebody to come through and kidnap your child? And then she had the nerve to say something about a van driving by too slow while going live. She loved live, Facebook Live. Oh, they're driving slow. Look at them. Yeah, look at them. So you have to be careful what you claim. Because on that day, your daughter was ahead of you and you weren't even in eye view of her on the bicycle. So fast forward, she does get kidnapped in a housing development where you don't even live and pay bills. And then you want to try to blame everybody else because this is what they do. So if everybody jumps in the river, you going to jump in there too? Because everybody else is doing it. It's all right. No, you need to take responsibility, April Thomas. Dominic too. You all failed your kids. With all this ghetto ratchet stuff you all were wrapped up in. Stuff that was just so disrespectful and just ignorant to me. And I thought, damn, I thought this was about a little girl missing. It went from a child missing to the suspects turning on each other to the ratchetness about the parents. But this is what happens when you have ratchet people raising children. People that are irresponsible, don't need kids. I hear these stories all the time. He said and she said and he did this and Pookie did this. And it's like, I feel sorry for the children, to be wrapped up in grown folks' drama, born to the wrong people who are immature and didn't have any business lying down, having sex and procreating. And many people could attest that they just got horrible ass parents. But see, it's having those fucked up parents that can get you fucked up. And that's what happened here. And I don't care what anybody says. That little girl would be alive today had she had parents that watched her and cared about her. Stood outside and watched her play and made sure she didn't get out of eye view playing. I don't care if she wanted to run around the building. You tell her, no, bring your little tail back. I can't see you around there. You play right here or you don't play at all. And I grew up in the inner city, and we took a lot of chances as children walking to the store alone, one block up. We could have easily been kidnapped as well, but by the grace of God, we weren't. And by the grace of God, we also had people watching out for us. People that would sit out, men sit out and talk. They knew we were neighborhood children. And if they saw anything hanky-panky, they'd come a running. We don't have people like that anymore. We don't have people that see somebody picking on your kid and then say something to the kid and say, hey, leave that kid alone. We got people now to sit there and watch and let somebody beat the hell out of your kid because people don't care. They're empty inside. I feel bad for her. I felt bad for her brother because after her death, that's all you heard on social media. The mama going back and forth, arguing on social media with random strangers. I thought, why do you care what they're saying about you? You haven't done anything, so what do you care? And all that BS the baby daddy had with the other girlfriend and baby mamas, and man, that shit was so bad. I said, man, this is what this child was living with. A baby daddy going from one woman to the next, talking bad about the baby mama on social media, got us all hyped up thinking maybe the baby mama had something to do with it, talking about a ransom. All that crazy stuff went on. You didn't know what to think about these people. And I told myself then when it first started, when he went on a live and implicated somebody in a ransom, I said, this is going to get wicked. And it did. And it did. And sadly, Cupcake paid the price for being born to wayward people. She was just a child, just a toddler. She didn't ask to be here. She didn't choose her parents. She didn't choose Tom Brown as a place to play. She didn't choose wherever the hell she lived. It's not her fault. She's just a baby. She was doing what kids do. She was outside playing. And no, nobody had the right to come and bother her. But the point is, it was almost 7:30 at night when these villains came through looking for a child to kidnap, and yours was out there with another child, their own cousin. The children shouldn't have been outside in the dark. You can get gone in the daylight. So what do you think will happen in the nighttime? Come on now. This is ridiculous. You want to hit the link. Give your opinion pertaining to this trial of Patrick Stallworth on the charges of kidnapping Cupcake. Give your opinion. I'll wait. This is a sad case. And the cases now, they get worse by the minute. It's always somebody hurting somebody. You have a terrible case out of California right now. 4 people kidnapped, found dead in a rural part of California. And an infant was a victim. You see, people don't care. There's no love out here. There's no loyalty. Now, why would you kill a baby? Baby didn't do anything to you. That woman didn't do anything to you that we know of. You've been convicted of kidnapping in 2005, paroled in 2015. So that means you didn't even do all the time. So how much time was given to this man who then attempted to kill himself when approached by police? You see how wicked the stories are. That no one is exempt from being a victim of true crime. So you need to be careful of the company you keep, the people you date, the people you marry, the people you socialize and fraternize with, giving rides to strangers, getting in cars with people, bringing people to your home, going to other people's home, meeting people alone, helping people, opening your doors to strangers, opening the doors to people you think you know. You don't know anybody. And we take for granted meeting and greeting people, women especially. Meet somebody at your job, work, and just all of a sudden go to their house, get in their car. What makes you think a woman can't hurt you? What you say to yourself, well, she's a woman, I'm a woman. But you don't know her. You may have seen her a few times out in a club or at your job. But what do you know about her? Because we all have done it. We're human. But you don't know people. People have gotten killed at parties, functions, bars, clubs, public arenas, concerts, sitting on people's front porches, standing outside somebody's car, sitting in somebody's car, sitting on somebody's, as I said, front porch, backyard, There's many ways you can leave here. And you didn't have to have a dog in the race. You just was in the wrong place at the right time. That's it. Innocent bystander on some garbage that didn't even concern you. Somebody got beef with somebody, want to shoot the whole damn place up, shoot the whole room up, shoot the whole yard up, shoot the whole car up. Or they intended to shoot the person in the car, but the bullet hit you. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. As they say, the bullet don't got no name. You got that right. We have to pray for our children because there are a lot of people, especially young people, and there's some older ones too, because eventually the young person has to become older. They don't have no business with no kids. And that's something a lot of people don't really like hearing. But a lot of you don't need no damn babies because you're not fit. You're still wanting to hang out in the street. You still wanting to get high, chief, run around with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, hang with different people, not mind your kids, not feed your kids, not clothe your kids. Once you realize motherhood is not for you, just hand the baton to somebody else and keep your legs closed and take birth control pills. That's all you got to do. Or put a condom on. It's all the same to me. But all that just burping babies back to back, they ain't hitting on nothing. Having a slew of children and you really don't want to be a mama or a baby daddy. But they're here. Can't give them back. Well, you can hand them over to somebody else that can raise them. And stop having sex unprotected. That's what you can do. Save the children the misery of being mistreated and neglected. Save the world for having to take care of your children. Just stop procreating. That's all you have to do. It's not hard. Because everybody's not cut out for motherhood, fatherhood. And a lot of people who think they're doing well by their children, who keep their children, they'll swear for God they're the best damn parent, but they're not. Because everything's about perception. And you hear the stories from children that they don't feel welcome or loved in their own household. But those parents that swear for God, hey, I'm doing my best. Well, maybe your best isn't enough. Only time will tell when somebody starts spinning the story that they were mistreated by you, not favored by you, neglected by you. You chose a man or a woman over your child. You hit your child, cursed your child, beat up your child, locked your child up, didn't feed your child. Hell, go as far as sexually assaulting your child, letting others touch your child, rape your child, human traffic your child. It's all the same. Will you admit you failed your child? Most of you won't. You'll blame your child before you take responsibility that you were not a good parent. You are not a good parent. This was one of the worst cases pertaining to an African-American child I'd ever heard in my life. But there's a story that's going to be retold and retold until people accept the fact that they don't need to have children. And people speak up about abuse and neglect of children. Because as I said, I do believe Cupcake was left out to play many times. Probably from the time she was able to walk, she was left outside to fend for herself. And I got testimony in the chat once of someone who knew somebody who said they lived in a complex where the mother lived, and she'd be out at night hollering for her child where she stayed. I don't think that person was lying. And you see, the state didn't bring up any charges against April Thomas for child neglect. And I thought that was atrocious because you basically gave her a pass to say it's okay to let your child wander around all day when you had to have heard testimony that the child was urinating on herself. How is that proper rearing to let your child urinate outside? And the fact that she urinated outside told the story too. That's why I tell you all to always pay attention to the details. Your child is peeing outside because they've been doing it. They've been peeing outside. They've been using the restroom outside. Stay woke. The fact that the other child was playing with her outside, nobody came looking for her, tells you she been outside playing unattended, windedly. See, I pay attention to the details. Because as I said, Cupcake wasn't the only child out there playing, so that should tell you something. These other parents were allowing their children to play outside till dark 30. Then you want to go look for them as if they're supposed to answer. Well, it's a luxury if they respond. And in this case, one did not. How about that? Because you've been doing this. I peeped game day one. When the story started coming out about the restroom business, I knew what time of day it was. I said, oh, she's been thrown outside. Just go play. So that means you're going out there, sweaty, hot, peeing on yourself, soiling yourself. God forbid if she had to make a bowel movement. Did anybody ever think about that? No, it didn't cross your mind, did it? Imagine a little girl pulling down her britches to make a bowel movement. No toilet paper and boo-booing in public. Since somebody thought this was a joke. You're too hard on her, mama. No, I'm not hard on her, mama. I'm just telling you the damn truth. Because it looks like to me some of you need a visual aid to understand right from wrong. So did you need a visual aid of a little girl boo-booing outside to say, yeah, ain't nobody paying attention to her. Yeah, she's been peeing and boo-booing outside. Stay woke. Maybe we should put you outside and you got to pee and boo-boo and not open the door and don't give you access to get in and let you see what it feels like. Because I think most of you know what it's like when you're out in public and you need to go to the bathroom. What do? You go try to find a restroom that's private. The door closes. There's a toilet seat and toilet paper. Well, now imagine a child can't get into a house to use the bathroom. And it happens often. Everywhere the child goes. And you think that's appropriate child rearing? Hell no, it's not. So that would lead me to believe you do other stuff that ain't right by your child. Stay woke now. I call a spade a spade. Because this is Pandora's box, basically. Because what did I tell you all about ratchetness? And when it starts off ratchet, it's been ratchet. And where there's ratchetness, there's more ratchetness. And that's why you had this craziness in court of people arguing over what this man said in an infirmary about raping a baby. Yeah, he said it. No, he didn't. But both women were in the room. Then you got one woman who's an assistant nurse. She's been talking to the man privately. For what? The hell do you have to talk to Patrick Stallworth about? Not a damn thing. Just killed a child. He's standing trial for federal kidnapping, and you want to talk to him about what exactly? So I was curious to when did they start talking? When he first got to the jail? How long did it last, this conversation? Talking privately. He's flirting with her, telling her he cares for her. They're talking in code that they love each other. But she tells the court, no, that's not what it means. It means I care for you, vice versa. Nobody cares about that stuff you're talking about, lady, because they're looking at you like you're a damn fool. That's why the people were laughing and gasping in the courtroom. Like, is this heifer serious? This man kidnapped a whole child. 9 times out of 10, sexually assaulted her, watched his girlfriend suffocate her and put her in a damn bag and throw her in a dumpster, and you're sitting here playing footsie-tootsies with this man. The hell's wrong with you? And neither one of them women have a job there at that Pickens County jail. Don't you find that interesting? What happened? Were they reprimanded for inappropriate behavior with inmates? Not performing their job properly, professionally? Should I trust a woman that fraternizes with inmates? Let's think about that. It's not saying you can't be attracted to a man, but you might want to think about having tunnel vision, being a nurse or a nursing assistant in a mental ward, a prison, and or a jail. Rehab facility, it's all the same. These people are tainted. They've committed crimes, committed atrocious crimes. And if you don't know what they've done, you might want to rethink googly eyes and flirting and giving out your personal information, talking to a person you don't even know what the hell they've done. That black lady, you knew what he did because people talk. And then we have information that you have a relative that had sex with him, allegedly. What the hell that's all about? So what is it? You wanted to try? See what he was about? Because there's women like that. Men too. They hear that somebody had good sex. They do this and that in the bedroom. So they got to try it out. Think about this, what I'm saying. Because this is how deep this goes pertaining to a child now. You got to remember, this is the start. These people getting this child is left behind by trifling ass parents. Now you got testimony years later of people flirting and fraternizing with this creep in a jail. There are people who hear, oh yeah, he's got a big you know what, and he does this and this. Same thing for guys, talking about the woman, what she does. Yeah, her, you know what's great, and she does this. Now everybody wants to have sex with the people that you're talking about because you done went and told a woman, oh yeah, he's got a big penis and he does this and blah, blah, blah. Now you want him. But the gist of the story is you're talking about a damn inmate, and you're also talking about a baby killer. That's a big difference than Joe Blow on the street with a well-endowed private part. This is when you know that the people in the jail, in the prison, have people just like them outside free. And it's only a matter of time they end up a news story. Stay woke now. Because think about what I'm saying. Ratchet ass parents involved in illegal activity, hanging in trap houses, hanging with people with guns, hanging with people gang affiliated, want to be a part of the scene, want to be known for something. People working in a professional capacity, fraternizing with inmates, writing and calling them, having sex with them in the jail. How long do you think it'll be before they are a news story, such as the baby, such as the defendant? It won't be long at all. Like minds. Like minds. I bet you if I was to go back in the book of life, go back to 2020, because the last time I looked at any content pertaining to the parents' two guns veto was probably early summer of 2020. It's been that long. I bet there's a whole lot of stuff that's gone on pertaining to these people. I just didn't indulge in it because it didn't have anything to do with Kamille. It didn't have anything to do with the suspects. And I didn't want to get off into all that he said, she said stuff. Because as I said, one thing begets another. And basically you're just joining the sensationalism of a crime that happened about a child. And there were other tubers that rode the ride. Planet of Fake, he did go into that realm and talking about the mother and the father and the two guns and the other participants and other crimes that were taking place in Birmingham. But I personally didn't want to get into all that every day. I talked about these people briefly of their bad behavior. But at some point, you have to know when to close the book and keep it moving. I'm going to be honest. I pray these people don't ever procreate again. Don't have any more children. I pray that these two demons stay in prison, Patrick Stallworth and Dereka Brown. And I pray that if anybody sees any signs of anybody that acts or mimics any of these people in his storyline, that you call authorities if you think they're abusing children, hurting children, or harming children. Because in the end, there are people out there like Dereka and Patrick Brown that just haven't been arrested yet. And there are people out here like April and Dominic. Stay in drama and keep procreating. Now, one could say, well, they could have changed by now, Angela. They could have changed their ways. They could act different now. Maybe. But I ain't went looking to find out because I don't care. Because I've told myself that when you go down in the abyss, you might get your ass stuck down there. And that's what you always have to remember about going down in the abyss, going down the rabbit's hole, going into the lion's den. You might get in there and you can't come back out. Thank you all for joining me. This content is pertaining to federal kidnapping of Kamille Mckinney by Patrick Stallworth. He's also facing a murder count by the state, and they're seeking the death penalty for the murder of Kamille. So these are two separate trials that he will have to attend pertaining to this child. Right now, the jury will be deliberating tomorrow afternoon of his fate on a federal kidnapping charge of the child. Thereafter, he will go to court again to face a murder count of the child by the state, and they are seeking the death penalty, state prosecutors. Just so you all have verification of what's going on. Sorry this content is late, but I didn't even get a notification, which I thought was very strange, considering I'm subscribed to one of the channels, one of the main channels that brings news out of Birmingham. I didn't see any notification of anything pertaining to her case and the defendants. I was hoping to maybe talk to Dereka's sister, Candace. Maybe Candace will reach out to me if she wants to give any information pertaining to her opinion on this case and what was said in court and the people that testified. I'd like to hear her opinion. And if anybody else, family related, would like to give their opinion, I'd gladly let them come up and talk to the viewing audience of what they think about Patrick's case and those who testified and the forensics and so on and so forth. Dereka will hopefully go to trial this winter on the same charge, and we will see what happens and the information that has been revealed or that will be revealed. But I do believe that both are complicit in the kidnapping, assault, and murder of the child. I don't think it was just one who sat idly by or didn't have knowledge. Because when you gather the information that they were seen together shortly after leaving Tom Brown, seen on surveillance, getting in and getting out of cars at service stations, you can use deduction that Kamille Mckinney was inside that SUV, possibly in the back seat. She's a small child. You wouldn't even see her in there. And I'm also curious to how this woman had a vehicle, what she did for a living. Did she draw any type of income, Social Security? How did she support herself? Did he work? Where did he work? Because we hear that apartment was in his name. So what was he doing? How were these two living? And were these two addicts? That's also something I was curious about. And why would you feed a child drugs? What in God's name would possess you to feed a child drugs? Did they mix it in with the candy or put it in a drink? What? Crushed it up? Why did they suffocate the child? Was that the sole reason for kidnapping her? Was to drug her, sexually assault her, suffocate her, and dump her body? Or was it longing for a child, but things got out of control? But one could say that doesn't make any sense. Because if you love the child and wanted the child, even though you're committing a crime by kidnapping, you definitely wouldn't, one, drug them. Two, you wouldn't beat them or suffocate them. You wouldn't sexually assault them, and you wouldn't murder them. Indeed. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Beganji, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during my lives. Please go to my community board for updates and polls. I will bring you content tomorrow pertaining to what transpired in court, pertaining to Patrick Stallworth and any other new developments I get and any other updates on my other stories. Please check out my extensive library on true crime and various topics. And I do have a community page with updates to all of these stories and breaking news. Thank you so much for joining me. You all have a safe weekend. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Mind the children. And please be aware of your surroundings when you are out. And know that there is no loyalty out here. Everybody is not your friend. And everybody does not wish you well. And that is something you need to teach your children, is to also be careful of the company that they keep. Preservation of life should be priority number one. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.